What if your webinar was not just a conversion machine, but actually a long-term trust builder? And what if the real reason why people aren't buying again has nothing to do with your funnel and everything to do with the way that you're telling your story? So today's guest is about to flip the script on how we sell with integrity, and she just might yell a little bit while doing it. Hey friends, welcome back to Million Dollar Marketing, the show where we're going to talk high converting systems, integrity-led strategy, and ditching the hustle in favor of real results. Today, I'm talking to the one and only Sarah Grace Alred, the founder of Cash Cow Webinars and the creator of the 2X Promise, and quite literally a force of nature when it comes to selling with soul. She's helped generate over $2.8 million in revenue for clients without becoming a sleazy sales machine. You know the type. And if you've ever felt torn between powerful sales and powerful ethics, she's here to show you that you can have both. So today we're going to dig into why most webinars are actually built to convert but not built to last, how to sell with honesty and still over deliver, and how that 2x 10x framework creates raving fans and repeat buyers. Of course, you know I'm all about smart paid traffic as well, so we're going to jam on that where the ads conversation fits in too. So let's go. Welcome, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, I sound so fancy. I'm like,
You sound so fancy. I
I
hope you have your
do.
fancy pants on.
I am so excited. What an honor, Jodi. Let's go.
All right. Well, actually, I want to know, like, how did you land in this space of being like the queen of webinars and live events?
Oh man, so the minute you say that, I get really, really resistant because I have thought for so long. I do not want to be known as the webinar girl. Like, there is nothing sexy about that, right? But there is something sexy about creating assets in business that last. And in a
Yes.
world of social media and 24-hour news cycles and like post, and it's gone in, an hour or with a flick of a scroll, I
The
actually have.
microwave society that we live in. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That businesses have started to really value assets, right? In general. And in our personal finances, we should honor assets and we should go for assets, things that last, And so I have actually come to kind of embrace the idea that in this season of my life, if being called the webinar girl is what's going to get my message out there and get you, millions of dollars of revenue and impact in your business, so be it. I will take that to the bank and run.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Talk to me then. Okay. What do you think is broken about online marketing right now?
Oh gosh, I would say that the biggest thing that is broken about online marketing is that we overpromise and underdeliver. And so in a world, I mean, you're the ad girl, right? You're the ad girl in which we are constantly having to stop the scroll and we are constantly having to, fight against clickbait and all of these other elements that are going on in the online world, that we have lost track of the fact of what are you actually saying and what are you actually promising to people in your live events, in your posts, in the perception that you put out into the world. What are you promising people that you are actually baiting and switching them? Right. And so if you're someone who is willing to bait and switch people, I can build you a webinar and we can take it to a 6-figure launch. No problem. Like, I have no doubt. But guess what? You're going to have to rinse and repeat and find new people the minute it ends, because you cannot deliver on the bait and switch that you are creating. And I think a lot of my anger and angst and yelling capacity has really come tenfold when I work with clients, bless their hearts, that come in and all they want to give me is their best testimonials, right? Here is the 1% of people or the 0.1% of people, true story, of people that I've been able to produce for. And they hang so all of their clout into that one testimonial, that one breakout story, that one student. And the problem is when people hear that, I call it the 10X promise, it's sexy, it sells, and then you don't deliver because that is what they expect. And we think that by throwing a big legal disclaimer saying results aren't typical, that somehow communicates to them psychologically that it's okay, you probably want to achieve this. We think that's enough. And the reality is it is not. And so you are then garnering a reputation in which you overpromise and underdeliver, and they will not do business with you again, and they will
Yep.
not refer people to you again in the name of Jesus. Here we go. Like that is my passion right now, is trying to
I
change that.
absolutely love that. That is a really toxic part of the ad agency thing
Bet.
that's happening. Because what do you see when you scroll and you see an ad agency ad? What is it? We 10x blah blah blah. We had 26 ROAS. Yeah, on your remarketing campaign where all you targeted was your webinar viewers and you spent $100 in your lifetime budget and then you sold this many people on the back end. You didn't talk about the 10 grand that you spent to get leads into the webinar. But let's just talk about the 26 ROAS or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
it's not transparent, it's gross, and it gives that overpromise. You have people buy into that perception of like, this is possible. And you know what it is? It is. But if you're not leading with integrity and what's normal, then people are going to expect this pie in the sky, like outrageous result. And when they don't get that, you're going to churn your client base and they're never going to refer to you or anything like that. I struggled with that when I was breaking down like my marketing. How do I want to portray myself? Because I do not lead with the highest and best results. I want to share the ugly too. Like we had a client who, we iterated and spent tens of thousands of dollars before it actually landed. And that's normal. We have to normalize risk tolerance and understanding that like things don't always work right away instead of these big pie in the sky. Like I'm the next Amy Porterfield. It's so frustrating.
It
So
is so
frustrating.
frustrating. And I imagine most of your listeners, if they're trying to get into $1 million marketing, they are looking for something long term, right? They
Yeah.
know that $1 million marketing, that kind of message is something that lasts, something that they can exit out of, or something that can be a legacy, or something that can really impact the world. And so I think your people here are like sitting here nodding their heads. And in the world of marketing, I think there has been a big push in the information age where none of us should be gatekeepers to our expertise, right? And we can accept that. We can say, yes, I will give them all of the information I can and give them all the tools and give them all the bots and give them all the AI prompts and I'll give them all the systems and I'll give them all the stories they need to be successful on the back end. But we haven't actually realized that we are actually gatekeeping results. We are picking and choosing the ones that we know will make the sale instead of the one that we know will make the actual transformation and the trust last. So do not gatekeep the reality of the ups and downs of your clients, right?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you can get comfortable in your own skin and get out of your own way, please, you can build a lasting business because people will see consistently over time, this person is real, this person is a communicator, this person is a problem solver. And wow, that's an environment I know I can thrive in and it will actually make you stand out more.
Yeah, I love all of this. It speaks to my soul. It's that leading with integrity, leading with that transparency and the accountability and the honesty, like those core values that I hold so deeply. Like as you're saying this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how I operate. And I think this is why like certain people are attracted to me and why my retention is so high. Like I keep clients because I report transparently, like, here's your ROAS minus my fee. Like you're breaking even because I have to get paid too, right? So like I want to be transparent about that. And then they can evaluate like, is the juice really worth the squeeze? Like I'm doing all these ads and I'm barely breaking even after the ads management fee. Great. I want you to make an informed decision. It doesn't make any sense for me to be like, look how much money you're making. And
Right.
then after my fee, they're not really making anything. Like that's not real.
And
So
wouldn't you dare say that sometimes we think that the text and the flashy and the hook the big sexy hooks that we're taught to put out there, that is just simply what is required. And that's where I would fight against it and say it actually is required to show what is possible. Right? It is required. That's the 10X, right? It's not that we don't put the 10X things in our webinars, and you probably don't avoid putting the 10X in ad copy and follow-ups and those things. Like, it is important to cast the vision, but if there is no other anchor in their experience on what is possible, and also here is what you can absolutely expect, right? Here's what we consistently deliver. I call it the core result. What is it that you can consistently deliver? Like, what are 50, 60, 70% of your clients achieving? You might be surprised really how good you are. You might be really surprised at, like, wow, if we're really doubling people's investment with ads, I would hire you all day long. Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, personal note, everybody, Jodi and I were sitting in a car together and we were at a mastermind together. And you and I were talking about my experience with an ads person. And what was I promised? I was promised the 10X promise. So how much did I dump in? 60 grand. How many leads did I get?
Oh.
Horror story. Exactly zero. Like, I'm not even talking we got just a few leads or a few hundred leads for 60 grand. We got zero. And that was my error. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't do my research. I went based on referral, and it turned into a big dumpster fire. But it's like, yeah, she made 60 grand. And then the amount of people I have not referred to her, she has lost millions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember that conversation, and I think, was I driving or riding? I don't remember, but I think I remember being like, is that even real? Does that even happen? It drives me nuts.
Yeah, because it's what we've, and those of you who are listening who are like, oh my gosh, I've done that and I've messed up. It's not too late, right? You actually have been taught to only show the perception of the 10X, to only show the perception of the exceptional, and then put a disclaimer. And it's now been ratted out like cats out of the bag, that people don't trust like they used to. And so the way for you to actually stand out is actually to operate with integrity and to
Yeah.
show what you can consistently produce. Like, it's an opportunity.
Yep. It's so interesting because I've had some really great conversations with amazing business owners lately, and their leading concern is, I've worked with agencies before and I really don't like them, or I've hired an agency and they just blew all my money and they weren't transparent.
Shoot.
Interesting though. So when someone hires me during our onboarding call, I ask them those questions like, what does success look like to you? Like, outside of being profitable or at least breaking even here financially, what does success look like to you? And I took all of those answers and I created a podcast series for coaches around this, of like how to choose the best ad agency or partner or manager to do your ads, because everything they told me, I was like, we do that. We do that. We do that too. Like, accountability, transparency, the reporting, the communication. I want you to lead the strategy. I want you to be in the driver's seat. You tell me what you need from me. And I'm like, I do all of these things. What's happening with the agency world out here, to where like I'm just operating in integrity at like my highest self for my clients, invested in their success. And they've been so hurt and so wronged over and over and over again, but promised the 10X and they got nothing. So,
And what has happened to the agency world in your mind?
I think there's a couple of things going on. I think number one, I think sometimes there's a cash grab. We created this success. We're going to have this 10X promise in order to get more people in, even though we know that we probably can't reproduce that, right? So we're going to get in clients. We're going to sell, not sure that we can deliver. So they're over promising, under delivering. A lot of times there's an operational issue that they don't have the right systems in place. So they're scaling, they're bringing in clients, and they have no idea how to handle that volume and still serve them at the level that they can serve maybe just a handful of clients.
Absolutely.
Operation issues, quality assurance issues, things like that. I had another thought of like something else that it could be, but those are the two that really stick out to me, is that the overpromise, underdeliver, like they're overselling, and they just have no idea how to deliver. They made it happen once, and so now they're an expert, right? And then somehow they get a connection to someone big who refers them, and then, they're messing up a lot of people. I mean, I was a CMO for a big agency, and I remember my KPI targets were so high. We need this many applications, this many booked calls. And I was like, why do we need so many? And it was because the churn was so high on the back end. Yes, the churn was ridiculous. I was like, you don't have a lead and application problem. You have a churn problem. Like, you're focused on the wrong thing here. Like, our marketing is solid. We're bringing in a good amount of leads. You're churning way too many. So, and it's because they're over promising, under delivering. Their systems are not made to scale. I think part of the other thing too, this was the other point I wanted to make, is sometimes you have like the face of the agency, right? So when people see me in their marketing and they connect with me, and then they come in and maybe they even have a sales call with someone else, or they have a sales call with me, but then they never talk to me again on the back end, and they're like, what is this? I thought I was going to work with you. And that's tricky, really tricky for an agency, because people do connect with me. People do want to work with me because of who I am and my personality and my integrity. The cool thing is I have a small team who are all very much aligned with me in values, but I remain the lead strategist on every single account. I'm touching every single account every single day. We're checking in. I'm doing the strategic, and then I have support with the tactical, because I can't do all of it and help as many people as I want to help. And it gives me an opportunity to, I also love leading a team. Leadership is a huge thing I love doing, but I'm not leading a bunch of senior strategists who also have 5 ads managers under them. I'm not doing that. I don't want to. I don't want to hand you off and have you feel like you're just another number on a roster. I'm leading the strategy. I'm the one that you communicate with in Slack. Like, I don't know. I think that's a huge problem for agencies. Huge.
Right. Right. They don't know how to step into that world of scaling, where especially where they are the face of the business, and navigating
Yeah.
those things. And I think it really comes down so much to what you said earlier on, that if all of us listening just took a big breath and said, where can I be more transparent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you looked at
Mm-hmm.
your entire business system and you said, here's how I generate traffic, here's how I sell, and here's how I fulfill. How can I be more transparent? Your business will grow if you address it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
And
agree.
I think a lot of this energy came from a keynote that I gave that was about the 2x 10x promise. And it was a room full of women specifically, but in that room we kept repeating the phrase over and over and over, women are chatty, right? And that was like the phrase I wanted them to take home after my key home. Women are chatty. Women are chatty. Women are chatty. And so they would look at their traffic strategies and they would say, if women are chatty, if that is true, with how I have my traffic strategy set up, is them being chatty a positive or a negative? And then we would have them look at their sales process and say, okay, if my clients, my women, because these are females, if my women, my customers are chatty, is my sales conversion process, is that a compliment to that, or is that a negative? And then they look at their
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment. If my clients are chatty, is this a positive or a negative? And I think some self-reflection there for all of us in the traffic space, in the sales conversion space, and in the fulfillment space will help you just see opportunities where you can leverage the fact that people talk, not just women. I know I like hone in that women talk, but so do
Yeah.
dudes, right? If I need a funnel designer, I'm asking this dude and I'm saying, who would you recommend that's going to be? Like, people are chatty. And so if you can leverage that by being a good human and looking at your process, your business will grow. Your business
Yeah.
will stand out, right? Like,
Yeah,
take that
it's so
moment.
interesting. I hear that they're chatty, but I'm internalizing that as is they want to have a human connection. They want that relationship, right? So, especially in the delivery process for me, I think that's where it's really important, and where I've had clients that are friends. I have friends that I have known and worked with for 10 years, like off and on. One of my very best friends is a client who has been with me for years. And she, you know what? She left and she went to a big giant agency that put her in a box and did cookie cutter and actually like drove everything into the ground and drained her operating budget. And she came back to me and she was like, I need your help. I need you to take this over again. And that's actually a case study that I have out, because it was within 12 days. We went from a negative zero point 0.8 ROAS to a 3.5, just simply because I didn't treat her account like a cookie cutter. I got on the phone with her. We had conversations. I listened to her because she knew exactly what was working and what wasn't. She knew, and they weren't listening to her. They weren't having an opportunity for her to share, and they weren't listening. She felt unheard. And so, yeah, she's chatty and she wanted to be heard.
Yes, and I love so much your example of that, of the fact that before you just go and automate everything, right? You might
Mhm.
have some superpowers within you that are actually going to explode your business way
Mhm.
more than an automation is. And if
Mhm.
listening is that superpower and like helping people connect dots or something like that, and right now that's requiring you as the attractive character, lean into it.
Mhm.
Lean into it, because when it's such a leverage point, people are always, how can I take myself out of the business and out of the business? Okay, like I get that. I get that. But like really consider the areas that you are trying to take yourself out of, because they could be the things that are actually bringing in the revenue and bringing in the referrals and bringing
Yeah.
in those future people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that sounds like we've been talking about this in the context of a lot of like the delivery. People just want conversions, right? And then having that conversation, that connection and a delivery, people want to remove themselves from that a little bit in order to have more time freedom, right? Because that's what we want as
Sure.
entrepreneurs. The long game matters. Tell me how are you accomplishing that inside of a webinar, building that long-term trust with the messaging inside of a webinar that plays out in the long game?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And where I have to give credit is really to one of my mentors, Russell Brunson, who really established
Mm.
here is the structure of a traditional webinar, right? And his system is brilliant. If you want to learn it, go to Expert Secrets. Absolutely genius, and has changed the industry. And while I have had immense success in my own business and in replicating that for other businesses, something that I've noticed is even though people see that on paper and even though they watch examples of it and they look at a framework, they try to plug it in and it still doesn't convert, right? It still doesn't convert. And so they either think Russell Brunson is a liar, right? Or they like start from scratch and they keep reproducing the webinar. And I'm like, both of those paths are not the right path for you if your webinar is not converted. Russell Brunson is not a liar. He is a genius and an
Right.
incredible human and has changed my life, right? And the idea of starting from scratch is also not the best approach forward. And so here is how we build webinars for the long game. The first thing that we establish once we understand what the offer is we have to establish the 10x promise. What is the absolute Alex Hormozzi style future,
Mhm.
amazing future cause that you are pushing forward that your product or service helps deliver? We do establish that. It's not evil, it is just incomplete. Okay. So we establish that 10x. What is that future? And then the next thing we do is, what do you repeatedly produce for people? Right? What is
Mm.
the result you repeatedly can help people? We call it the break even point, or we call it the 2x, the 2x promise, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, here is what is possible, and here is what you will get bare minimum, right? Here's your break even point. And in the
Yep.
world of weight loss, it's like, yeah, we had Cami that lost 100 pounds with our program. She's incredible. What's amazing though is, what would 7 pounds look like in the next 7 weeks? What would that do for you? What would that do for your
Yeah.
soul? What would that do for your brain? What would that do for your energy? What would do that for your momentum? 7 isn't as sexy as 10 is, but it is a 2x promise that they can hang their hat on, right? And that they
Mhm.
can anchor their trust in. And if you can consistently produce that for people, you've got customers for life. And you've got customers that hit 7 pounds and then hit 25 pounds and then hit 50 pounds and will be able to better achieve the incredible 10x promise. So those are huge anchors in us being able to make sure that we are actually producing a narrative here that is honest, that is trusting, and that is real. Because here's what I found. Yes, percent the 2x and 10x promise is for the customer. It is for the person watching to gain trust, to feel good, to say, I think I trust this person. I'm going to go forward. But do you know who it's really for?
Mhm.
It's for the entrepreneur.
Mhm.
It's for the person hosting, so that they know they're not being a jerk, so that
Yep.
they know they're not overpromising, right? There is a
Mhm.
completely different energy when that entrepreneur can stand in a webinar and say, 100 pounds is awesome. My first goal is to get you to 7.
Mhm.
And that they can say that with confidence and conviction. And you would not believe the energy in the room when that 2x promise is given. The trust goes through the roof.
Yep.
You can feel
Yep.
it. You're like nodding. I'm like, have you experienced this? People actually being honest with you?
Yeah, I have experienced this, and I have made this shift in how I have sales conversations with my clients. So I had a previous business and a previous business partner, and I think a lot of what we did, not think, I'm sure, I am confident that a lot of
Yep.
what we did in our messaging and our strategies and everything like that was a whole lot of that 10x, a whole lot of that like highest and best, share our best wins. And that actually worked. We had a 7-figure business. We had a great business and a lot of repeat buyers and things like that. Things have changed. It's people are onto us, right? They're understanding that like not everybody's getting these results and leading with the integrity. I love the 2x promise. I love that. So this is like the conversations that I had just a couple of sales conversations already this week. And in these conversations, I say, like, if I didn't believe that it was possible for you to succeed with ads based on, the audits I've done, the conversations we've had so far, like, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And we're going to talk about projections. We're going to talk about what this could look like with like industry standard conversions. I want to come from that place of like, this is what's possible, but I'm not going to tell you that I'm promising anything. Nobody should ever be promising you anything because you just can't know. And I'm definitely not telling you that we're going to have, these huge pie in the sky results. Could we get there someday? Maybe. But
Yeah.
like, I'm leading with that, like, this is possible, but we also need to understand like risk tolerance. We need to understand that there's like data that we have to buy. It's so interesting because I have a very high conversion rate and like a low churn rate because I build that trust and I set that expectation of like, it's not a home run every time. It might take a little bit. And I set timelines of like, this is how soon we're going to get this live. And this is okay. By this week, we're going to have this amount of data. If we're spending this much to be able to make this decision and scale it up or figure out what's broken, I just try to be super realistic. And that was not the case with my former business. It was totally that 10x everything of like
X used to work. And that I think is like the cherry on top of what you said is you just said stuff has changed. Stuff has changed, right? I was sitting at a mastermind like a year ago at like a race car track. It was so awesome. Everybody should go to it with Brad Gibb. It's so fun. But we were talking about how there are more, how do I say this? There are more less famous people in the world than there ever have been. And like sit with that for just a minute, right? But just due to the online space, it used to be really hard to be famous, right? But the reality is there just are tons of like less famous people out there now. And so the 10x thing has become diluted and it's become common and it's actually become expected from people. And so it doesn't create that pattern interrupt, right? I know Tony Robbins talks about how you should swear occasionally because it's a pattern interrupt. And while I disagree, the concept makes sense to me. The idea of pattern interrupt, you know what the pattern interrupt right now is? 2x promise.
The 2x.
Like shocking. The going in there and just saying, look, I'm going to stick with you until you've lost 7 pounds. I'm going to stick with you until you're breaking even. People will be shocked. That is the pattern interrupt because they have been used to so much out there. And for anybody in this moment, like my heart is racing a little bit. For anybody in this moment that feels like they're just 10xing right now, let me bring some wisdom down from my mentor, Josh Forty, right? As he was trying to help me really, really get this message out there of like webinars done right and webinars that are assets and webinars that produce over and over and over again because of how we build them. One of the things that I was so afraid of is I was like, increasing prices and increasing a team and doing all these things is I was like, what if I screw up? Like, what if I work with this 50, 80K client and like, I can't deliver. And he's like, oh, it's going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to make sure that I'm 2x and 10xing promising. Like I'm the girl behind this. Like, but I had this fear of like, what if I screw up? And he's like, you will screw up. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. Right. I get real spicy. And I'm like, I'm not going to go into that and not be able to deliver for my clients. I'm like, that fights against my integrity. And he stops me and he goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. You think your integrity is built by the absence of problems? I know. Can't you just hear him saying this? And I sat there and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like toying on it. And he goes, no. Your integrity is built in the presence of problems.
Whole sermon.
It flipped everything, Jodi. It flipped everything, that moment with Josh, where I realized it's actually when the ad doesn't work and when the webinar campaign doesn't work, that's actually when my integrity is on the line on how I
Mm.
when it happens, right? And so that's the message I would give to people that have been 10xing, 10xing, 10xing. Like, okay, like go repair it. Like,
Yeah.
go repair it. Like, okay, refund the money, or okay, like change the onboarding process, or send an apology. I literally just got an email yesterday that was from I mean, he's bringing in $100 million a year. He's a dear friend of mine. And I'm part of his program. He works in finance. And he sent an email that basically called out that they are fully aware that the content of the program is great, but the ability for them to care for their clients has been a disaster for the past year, which it has been. I have felt
Yeah.
that. I have sent him boxers about that. That has been my experience. And all it was an apology and a promise for something better. And I was
Yeah.
like, he just 2x'd. He
Yeah.
just 2x'd and said, at bare minimum, here is how we're going to operate moving forward, right? That's a pattern interrupt to me.
Oh, I love all of that. And I like, big shout out to Josh Forty. How is this? We have the same coach. How does he have that wisdom? I really believe there is some sort of anointing on this man. He is so wise, and I'm so grateful because like those mic drop moments where I'm like, that is the thing I needed to hear. It is so good, so good.
My kids are always like, isn't your coach like 20 years old? And I'm like, he could be. He could be half my age. I'm not sure, but he is so incredibly wise. And I know that that particular thing has come from his experience on not being able to deliver for a client. So he has earned his stripes that way of taking a lot of money, going after something, doing his best and it not working. And that's what he learned in the process. And I'm like, this changes everything. We can do this. We can do this.
Does. It does. It does. Oh my goodness. So a good chunk of what else I have outlined for this, we've already talked about, which is great. It just flowed so well. And I love that we've had such a great conversation. I want to do a little strategy crossover here and talking about sending traffic to high converting systems. So I think, in my opinion, when ads don't work, 9 times out of 10, it's not even necessarily the ads. Sometimes it's the overall strategy, or it's what's on the other side, right? Like, so we're sending traffic to a webinar, the webinar's not converting. So let's talk about that crossover. How are ads and webinars actually going to work best together, in your opinion?
Yeah, and this will be real fun because I'm like, maybe you and I'll have a boxing match and disagree. And that's like totally great. I'm here for it because I do not work with ads, right? I work with ads teams and we work through troubleshooting and those things, but I am not in the nitty-gritty of ads. And the approach that we have largely taken with the webinars that we build is the most important thing in the webinar. And therefore, the people that come to the webinar is qualification, right?
Mm.
We have webinars that sell everything from $15,000 coaching programs to $97 vegan plant memberships, right? Like we have massive disparities in the actual price of the offer, but we do not go for quantity of people in the room. That is not what we go for. We go for
Mm-hmm.
quality people in the room. And that's where I love working with ads teams that are all about small numbers and massive conversions.
Yep.
So I don't sit here and tout, get me 8,000 people to click on the link. Like I need in the next 6 weeks, I need 500 people to attend the webinar total.
That are
And they
qualified,
go,
that are
oh,
a good fit.
that are
Yeah.
a good fit. And
Yeah.
I don't know in those first couple webinars whether they are qualified, but we do feedback loops, right? To see
Good.
how qualified they are. But like
Yeah.
when people hear only 500 people need to hear my webinar, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, don't I want like 5,000? And I'm like, you can have 5,000, but if they're all the wrong people, you've just overpaid and like all the kind of things. And so my personal view, and I'd love your view as well, is that you must qualify. When we build a hook for a webinar for an ad, there has to be a minimum of 3 qualifying words on the ad
Mm.
and 3 qualifying words in the hook of the webinar, right? There
Mm-hmm.
has to be. And that just again helps us keep costs down and keeps the right people in the room. And man, when it's dialed in, that's where the magic happens, when
Yeah.
it's dialed in. But that's
Yep.
what we aim for.
I totally believe it. And I'm definitely in that category of ads people who doesn't believe that you just send volume, 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 and like pray that they convert at industry standard levels, right? Like that's not the strategy I like. I would rather pay more for a higher qualified lead and get the right people in the room, and the webinar does its job and converts them. I'm huge into attribution tracking and finding that out. Like that's why I love tools like Go High Level, because you can see first source, last source when the ads are set up properly with UTM codes, and you can understand like, all right, it was this campaign, this ad set, and this ad that brought in this person that didn't just buy the thing we were selling on the webinar, but holy crap, they bought our highest ticket thing. And so like, how do we get more of those? Well, we do more of that. So
Yes.
super, super big fan of like understanding what's working all the way through the funnel so that we can have the highest qualified people. I love what you said about the messaging too, about the 3 qualifying words in the hook of the ad and in the, headline for the webinar on the landing page. Super,
Well,
super
and
great.
I got to share like the backstory behind it to help people remember why we choose 3 qualifying words. One of the ways that I educate our webinar people on why we take the very narrow approach that we do to sell their $15,000 coaching programs or their $5,000 adventure van, things that they're doing, whatever those things are, is have them look at like a virtual magazine rack. Right. And I say, okay, here's magazine A, B, C, D, and E. And I have like a whole training on this that I love to show people that is centered around, would you pick this up? Would you pick this up? Would you pick this up? And I'm married to a physician. My husband's an anesthesiologist. And when his anesthesiology magazine comes to the house, it is a foreign language. When I look at the medical terms and everything on the front of that, I am like, I can't even, like, I can barely read the page numbers, is what it feels like with the amount of language, medical language that's on those things, right? Versus a, like, I mean, this is super old school, but like 17 magazine or Cosmopolitan magazine, they'll only use the first name of the Kardashians, for example, on
Right.
Cosmopolitan magazine, because there's an assumption that if you hear the word Chloe, you know exactly who they're referring to. Whereas someone that is my age, like I just know that because it's on my training, but like someone that's my age or 50 or even 60 probably has no idea who Chloe is and will date it back to somebody from the 70s or something like that. And so I go through that process to say, it's not that we're not targeting anybody. It's that we're not wanting to waste your money on people that do not understand what you do. And so what does a medical headline look like? What does a 17 magazine headline look like? What does a van lifer headline look like? You want people to look at it and go, huh? And pass it. You want that to happen because you actually are not ready. You can't help those people. And so let's save you a whole bunch of ad spend in the process.
So there's this balance of like the right messaging, calling the right people in, but also repelling the people that aren't a good fit.
1,000%. That you don't want them hanging out in your algorithm at all, right? If my people have no idea what an opt-in is, you can't be in my world right now, right? Like I actually cannot help you, right? That's not who my person is. So disqualify the people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, all of that. That was an excellent conversation about traffic and webinars. I want to actually pivot a little bit here and talk about some of the stuff behind the business. So you're a mom of 4.
I'm a mom
You've
of 4.
built a waitlist only consulting firm and you work about 16 hours a week. Is that right?
I'm at 12 right now because it's summer.
Is there a blueprint you can give us? Because every mom needs this. Like, that's your next business?
You know what? It's so funny. I was just interviewed last week from Kevin and Josh, our dear friends, and that was what they wanted to talk about just nonstop. Like they were like, wait, what? So if you're interested in diving into it, I'm happy to dive into how it works and principally why it works, if that's of interest to your audience.
Well, what's hilarious is they are about to get interviewed by me right after this interview.
You guys just talk about it. Boom. Yes.
So, but I will encourage our guests our listeners to go listen to, it's called the Entrepreneurship Sucks podcast. So if you've already had this conversation, like, man, we're going to spiderweb all over the all over the internet. And I'll send you guys to the Entrepreneurship Sucks podcast. Go find the episode with Sarah and listen to the blueprint on how she is amazing at this. I mean, I guess in that you're probably going to you're breaking down like the secret to scaling with margin and not mayhem. That's one of the biggest things that I've been talking about recently in my podcast was scaling with margin. I want to create margin, especially for us mothers who want to be present in our kids' lives, right? We don't want it to just pass us by. I homeschool my kids on top of this business. And it's because I've created margin and I'm personally not scaling to the point where I can't have that with my kids. I need to add more margin in order to do that, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to continue to do what I do with integrity and create still more margin than what I have, but I'm very happy with the margin I have.
I think you're crushing it from just how I've sat with you and how you talk about your family and the life that you're building. You're in it. You're in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm in the gym a lot too. And I have regrets about how hard I'm going right now, but it is what it is.
I don't know if anybody regrets having a healthy mom, right?
No, I know. Nobody regrets having a mom that could throw them over their shoulder. I could easily pick up my 12-year-old who weighs over 100 pounds and like carry him out of a burning building, like I would never regret being that healthy.
Amen.
So yeah, you're right. No regrets. That is a tattoo. It's no regrets right here.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
All right. I'm going to head into what's that?
That's a life worth pursuing. One with no regrets. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Couple rapid fire questions before we wrap up, and I'll give you an opportunity to share how people can learn more from you. Okay. These are intended to be rapid fire. And I would say very few of my guests rapidly answer these questions. So we'll do our best.
Okay, well, I'm a competitor by nature, so here we go.
All right, she's like, bring it on. Okay, what's the favorite marketing myth that you love to bust?
That making money takes a ton of time.
Love it. Biggest pivot moment in your business?
When Dan Henry roasted my offer and told me it sucked, and I was like, I'm going to show you.
I'm going to show you, Dan Henry. All right, one thing that you'd do differently if you had to start over?
I would have been kinder to myself in the process and leaned into my strengths instead of assuming that I had to be different and a certain way in order to succeed. I would have been so much kinder and more appreciative of who I was in that moment.
Oh my gosh, we could unpack all three of those things, I'm sure, for a long time. But we're headed into the end of the hour here, so we're running out of time. But Sarah, this has been absolute fire. I am so grateful that you came here and had this conversation with me. So for anyone who's thinking, all right, I'm sold, where do I learn more from Sarah? What's the best way for them to connect with you or work with you?
I am super privileged right now to be able to have a waitlist only client list. And so the ability for me to just jump in and send you an invoice and start building your webinar is not in the cards right now. However, I do have the capacity that I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. So if you find me on Facebook, my normal profile, come be my friend and send me a DM. I am in the DMs and I would love to know what you are working on and would love to help you just through DM, be able to establish your 2X and 10X. Just come and find me. Tell me you came from Jodi, and I would just love to have a conversation with you. And when it makes sense for us to work together and blow up your world with a webinar, that'll make sense. But I just want to talk to your people. That's what I would want.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's really coming from a heart of service. And I absolutely love that. All right, you guys, if this episode gave you a breakthrough, a mindset shift, or even just made you feel like you're not crazy for doing things differently, like with integrity, right? Why do we feel crazy sometimes? I want you to take just 60 seconds and rate and review the show. Share it with a friend who could use to hear this message. I think there's a lot of people that need to hear this, right? And tag us on social media. You know my handle. It's going to be down in the show notes. And at Sarah Grace Live. Is that your Insta?
That's Insta.
All right, perfect. All right, let's keep building this new era of marketing, one real conversation at a time. We'll talk to you next week. This is $1 Million Marketing.